Okay, in statistics, you always start out with a population of interest or something you're interested in. Maybe it's all the people in your high school, maybe it's all the people in your classroom, maybe it's all golden retrievers on the planet, maybe it's all dogs in your neighborhood, maybe it's every single iPhone, maybe it's every single Skittles, something like that. That's a population of interest. Now, you want to break it down to populations of interest that are manageable or that you can easily access, or those that are very, very large. As you can see, there's some that are very, very large. So say I'm starting out with a small population of interest, like trying to figure out, what the favorite pizza topping of every one of my classes. That would be a case where it is nice and small, so I can do a census. A census is when you can gather data or information from every single individual in your population of interest. Again, a good example would be everyone in your classroom, everyone in your immediate family, something like that. All iPhones in your house, something like that. Now, a population of interest that is large, maybe it's every student in your school, maybe it's every dog in town, maybe it's every single iPhone in your particular state, or even in your school, something like that. If it's something that you can't easily do a census for, or maybe you just can't do a census at all, maybe it's just impossible, that is when you would do a sample. Now, a sample is a small subset of your population. Notice I put subset of your sample. That's not true. I'm going to erase that right now. It's a small subset of your population. Now, ideally, you want your sample to be random, and you want it to resemble what your population looks like. You want it to be like a nice small snapshot of it. That's really important. So that's why we always do things randomly as far as getting a sample code. You're going to learn about all sorts of different types of samples. Thing you just want to remember, you always want it to be random. And when I mean random, it's not the whole I'm going to close my eyes and just randomly point at something, or eeny, meeny, miny, mo, something like that. That's not random. As humans, we do not have a very good capability of randomly doing things. We usually want to rely on technology. So that's why we use things like random number generators, or heck, another way we can do it too, a very common way, is put everybody's name, shake it up inside of a hat. That's random too. But if you're just thinking, I'm going to randomly do something, and then you try to do it off the top of your head, most of the time it's not going to be random no matter how hard you try. So you don't want to go about doing that. So anyway, from all of these, you gather data. So you're gathering data. That's pieces of information you're getting from every individual. So you can get that in a census if you're getting data from every single individual in your population. If it's a sample, then you're getting data from every single individual in your sample, which again, your sample is a small group that represents your whole population. Now, what do you do with that data? You want to summarize that data. There are a lot of ways you can do that. It all depends on whether your data is categorical or whether it's quantitative. So there are a lot of different ways you can summarize your data. But you can have some sort of summary, like a common summary we're familiar with is we use mean or average a lot. That's a really common summary. Sometimes median's one. Maybe you're talking about the range of values. Some sort of summary of all your values or all your data. That is what we're talking about here. We want to summarize it. Now, if you're summarizing a census, that's what we have, a parameter. Now remember, a parameter comes from a population. Parameter, population, they both begin with P. Not a coincidence. Or maybe it is, who knows, but it's an easy way to remember it. Now, when you're summarizing a sample, so you're getting an average of everybody in your sample, you're hoping that you can apply it to your population, but ultimately it's summarizing your sample because you don't have data for everyone in your population, just your sample. If you're summarizing your sample, you are getting a statistic. That's what the whole course is based on, basically. It's when you have populations that are too big, that you can't get information for everybody. So what you do is you do a sample. You get a small group from that population. Then you gather data, little pieces of information. You summarize it. And that summary of all that data, it's a statistic. So to cap it, statistic summarizes a sample. A population or a parameter summarizes a population. If you have a population of interest, it's really small, then you can do a census. If you have a population of interest that's really big or really hard to access, then you do a sample. Your census gathers data, then you make a parameter. So you go from a population, census, parameter. You can also go from a population to a sample to a statistic. Hopefully that helps you with some of these basic terms as you get started in this course.